Okay, this should be the conclusion of Lori Wilde, The Christmas Backup Plan, a Twilight, Texas novel. For the woman who defied logic. The woman who made him want to throw caution to the wind, tear up the checklist to skew those backup plans, and just dive in head first. The woman who had him longing for things he never dared go after before, for the fear of screwing it all up. Love, commitment, a wife. For most of his life, he'd operated on the principle that if you planned enough, had enough auxiliary scenarios in place, had a few escape routes, you could control whatever happened to you. He'd been able to see how the access calculating and maneuvering had hamstrung him, keeping him rigid and inflexible, unable to adapt to unfolding events. If he had prepared for them in detail, and honestly, who could anticipate all the eventualities? His planning had protected him, but it also kept him sewed up, preventing him from innovating and trying something new. His strict adherence to his method of self-protect erected barriers and kept other people at arm's length. It had worked well for him when he was in the military, a structured environment that rewarded obedience and rule following. But he no longer in the military, and he recognized just how much he stymied his own creativity by forever insisting on a backup plan. His job had been his whole life. He lived and breathed combat, knew every aspect of jumping from a plane at high altitude, but what he knew about how to navigate civilian life would fill a teacup. Dog, you sure took up with the wrong fellow. Augie sat gnawing on a chew toy at Remington's feet, and when he heard his voice, his eyes pricked. I don't have my glasses on. You can kind of tell that. Yep, sorry to break the news to you. Unless I can change Arya's mind about me, you're stuck with a crotchety old bastard. The sound of Ridge's King Ranch pickup truck rumbled into the driveway. Augie lifted his head, gave a little bark, and looked at Remington for guidance. His big eyes seemed to ask, friend or foe? It's just my brother. Get used to him. He's got a tendency to stick his nose in where it's not wanted. He and his wife both. Augie gave a low growl and struck Remington so humorous, considering such a tough sound came from such a small pup. Chill, my man, he murmured, and stuck out his foot and lightly touched the dog's back leg with his toe, reassuring Augie that all was well. The puppy turned his head, met Remington's eyes, then hopped up, and the hair on his hindquarters bristling, still growling low in his throat, and moving toward Ridge, who'd gotten out of his truck. Laughing, Ridge pushed his Stetson back on his head and raised his arms in the air. Call off your bodyguard. Remington put down his carving knife, got to his feet, whistled low, and patted his thigh with his palm. Here, heel, Augie. Augie looked from Remington to Ridge and back again. I know you'd like to go on for his throat, Remington drawled, but come on back here, boy. Ridge squatted in front of the dog. Augie backed up barking. Stop monkeying with my dog, Remington said. You're scaring him. You're going to have to do a lot of work with him to temper that antisocial tendency, Ridge pointed out. Who says he's antisocial? Maybe he just wants to be left alone. Isn't that the definition of antisocial? Ridge chuckled and straightened. Did you come over here to criticize my dog, even though they both lived on a 100,000-acre ranch? It took over 20 minutes to drive from Ridge's side of the ranch to the east side of Remington's plot of land on the west. Nope, Ridge said, that's just a side benefit. What do you want? Kaya sent me. She did, Remington grumbled. She's worried about you. Why? You're self-isolating again. We all can't be extroverts. Remington picked up Augie and held the puppy to his chest. Augie was still eyeing Ridge like he didn't trust him. This is more than that. You spent Christmas riding fences. So we missed you. Ridge's brow knit and he looked concerned. I can take care of myself. Remington drew himself up straight. He was 2 inches taller than Ridge. 6'1" height, and added in a snarky tone, Big brother, Ridge let that pass. This isn't healthy. What's not healthy? Getting a dog or woodworking? Because the last time I checked in with my therapist, he recommended both a hobby and a pet. You're using them as an excuse to stay away from the family. What makes you say that? Remington kept his tone mild. Ridge pulled out his phone, switched it on, turned the screen around so Remington could see a long list of texts he ignored. And that's just my messages. You've been ignoring Kaya's, Rhett's, and Ranger's messages too. Last time I checked, answering texts is not mandatory. No, but you know if you don't answer them, eventually someone will drive out here to make sure you're okay. So the only thing I can figure out is that you wanted me to show up, at least on a subconscious level, so here I am. What's up, baby brother? How's this? I answer your texts and you go away. Not happening. Ridge strolled into the workshop, studied the woodworking project. What are you working on? He should have been grateful for the change in topic, but he didn't want to talk about that piece either. None of your business. Ridge cocked his head and studied the redwood lumber. Hey, it looks like a... What'll it take? Remington interrupted, feeling a sudden rise of panic tightening in his chest. Ridge raised his head. What's that? To get you to leave me alone and keep your mouth shut about this. Remington waved his woodworking project. Easy enough. Come to dinner tonight. Just me? Ridge shrugged. You can bring the puppy. My kids could help socialize him. Your kids would wag him around by his hind legs. They would not. Kay has taught them how to handle a puppy. They're 4 and 2. I don't trust them one bit. Leave the pup. Bring it. I don't care. Just come to dinner. No one else will be there? Just you and Kaya and the kids? Kaya might have invited her parents. And that's it? Ridge shrugged, looked a little sheepish. She invited Aria, didn't she? I'm not privy to her exact guest list. Here's my RSVP. No. What's your deal? I'm not fond of the matchmaking. No one's trying to play matchmaker. Remington shot him a look. Seriously, bro, you're as transparent as tracing paper. Thank your wife for her efforts, but I'm a no-show. Ridge sighed. Kaya's going to chew my ass for bungling this. Aw, poor baby. Your problem, not mine. Ridge lifted his Stetson, scratched his head. So there's no way you'll save me from an ass chewing. Rid, nope. You're heartless, and you're being shameless manipulative. What happened to you with you and Aria on that trip? Not going there. Remington shook his head. Did you two? I don't kiss and tell, so you kissed her. And a lot more than that. His secret must have shown on his face because Ridge whistled long and low and said, Damn it, now I have to eat kale once a week for the rest of my life. What? I bet Kaya I'd eat kale once a week if you and Aria hooked up on that trip. She swore you did, and I said no way. A wager on me? That's low, brother. Please tell me you didn't sleep with Aria so I can save my taste buds. What a conflict. Tell a lie and save his brother from kale in his diet, or tell the truth and have everyone know what happened on the road. Backup plan. Here's where he could use a good backup plan. Listen, he said, if you'll help me finish this project, I'll tell you what I'm carving and why. A big fat grin spread across Ridge's face. Hand me that sander, little brother, and let's make this happen. Chapter 24, Undercurrent. An air current that flows below the upper or beneath the primary currents. Are you going to Ridge and Kaya's party? Viva asked. It was Thursday, December 31st, New Year's Eve morning. And it had been 3 days since Aria had seen Remington in town. She and her boss were working to decorate the barn used for wedding receptions. Tomorrow they had an evening wedding scheduled. Pushing the tables together to make one long table and draping them with tablecloths reminded Aria of blue and white sheets she and Remington had used to transform the convention center in Twilight into a winter wonderland. Her heart squeezed. She let out a weary, heavy sigh. I can't believe Kaya is hosting a party when she's about ready to pop with that baby. That woman is a hard one, Vivi said. She's the original pioneer woman. Yeah, she's one tough mama, something I'll never be. Are you okay? Vivi cannoned her head and gave Aria an assessing glare. Aria waved a hand. Fine, I'm fine. Don't mind me. You don't seem fine. In fact, you seem moody as Remington ever since you came back from Twilight. I fear he's rubbed off on you. Oh, yeah, he rubbed off on me big time. Rubbed up on her big time. Okay. I'm just in this holiday funk, she said, which was true enough. All these festivities got on her nerves. Vivi gave her a side eye. In what way? Too much cheer, I guess. Too much music, food, and company. But you love that stuff. It makes you such a good wedding planner, and you live for celebrations. Aria shrugged. Every optimist gets blues sometimes. Maybe Vivi stepped back to admire their handiwork. They then moved to adjust a tablecloth that was an inch lower than the rest. But why does this optimist have the blues? She wasn't getting into it with Vivi. One, it was none of her business, the boss's business. And two, she didn't want to talk about Remington. It was simply hurt too much. You never answered my question, Vivi prodded. What question was that? Ever since returning home, she had trouble staying on point. Briefly, she wondered if her dwindling attention had anything to do with the concussion she suffered, but in her heart of hearts, she knew it didn't. Are you going to Kaya and Rich's New Year's Eve party? Vivi repeated. Are you? Why are you answering a question with a question? Aria flicked her hair over her shoulder and met her boss's inquisitive stare. Why are you? You're being evasive. No, she said, I'm not going to the party. Why not? Vivi asked. I just had dinner with Kaya and Ridge the other night, and she secretly hoped Remington would be there. Kaya had hinted that he might be there, and he hadn't come, which was just as well. That's enough togetherness for 1 week. But this is New Year's Eve. So what? You skipped out on Christmas. I was there on Christmas Eve. But you love New Year's Eve. Vivi moved to open the blinds to let in more light. Not this year. Why not? What is this? 20 questions? Why? Because Granny Blue was going to be there, and inevitably, as she always did at family gatherings, she'll bring up that silly humming legend. And because Aria was the last single Azulte sister, everyone urged her to find the one. Well, guess what, folks? She found the man who made her head sing, and when he kissed her, and it was all cracked up to be. Oh, sure. For sure, the kisses were spectacular, and the sex with Remington was out of this world. But once they were out of bed, nothing about their relationship worked. I'm not just in a mood. Okay, Vivi suddenly dropped the topic, leaving Aria wondering what her boss had up her sleeve. Why, are you and Duke going? Vivi shook her head. We couldn't get a babysitter. Oh, so that's why Vivi was angling for. Well, okay, then sure, I'll keep the Reed and Roy, she said. I wasn't hinting around, weren't you? Vivi stroked her chin as if mulling that over. Not consciously, but maybe I was. I do have this new red dress I've been dying to wear. Go have fun. Babysitting for you is a great excuse not to go do this thing. What? Or should I say who are you avoiding, Aria? Vivi asked. As if Vivi didn't know, Aria decided not to answer that. Where are the place settings? I'll get those put out. Gray tub. Vivi pointed to the color-coded plastic tubs that she used to store wedding supplies. But she was always rearranging things. Then Aria couldn't keep up with where she had put what. And the flameless candles are in the highboy drawer? Aria opened the tub and started taking out place settings for 50 guests, and as she laid the table, her mind once again returned to the memory of that last wedding she planned. Olivia and Ben's. Remington had been such a help. Why couldn't she stop thinking about that man? And why did her heart ache every time he popped into her head? Which, let's face it, was pretty much nonstop. Even when she was asleep, she dreamed about him. The man had burrowed under her skin and made himself at home there, even if he didn't know it. Even if she didn't want him there. She thought of the people she'd met in Armadillo, those 3 couples who'd been so in love, Helen and Hank, Audra and Pat, Andre and Tanya. How Pat had told her that you know when you're in love, when the other person isn't around, and you miss your loved ones so much as it physically hurts, which granted, she hadn't fully understood until now. Oh yeah, she got it. Ever since she sent Remington home from Twilight, her body had been aching for him. Be honest, it's not just your body. Her heart, the cranky thing, missed him too. In fact, ever since the last time they made love, she waked up in the middle of the night, an impending sense of doom flooding her heart pounding so hard, she feared she might be having a heart attack or a stroke. She'd gotten up one of those times and gone to the computer, Googled her symptoms, and discovered she was having a mild panic attack. But why? What had her so twisted in knots? She did what she could to improve the symptoms. She just jumped ropes, her preferred form of exercise. did the breathing exercises that Remington had taught her from PTSD therapy, pulled out her paints and brushes and created art. Heavens had she painted, producing painting after painting, a dozen since coming home, using lots of blues and grays, which wasn't her usual style. Normally, she painted with vibrant yellows, oranges, and reds. Her subject had shifted as well. Instead of brides and weddings scenes, she painted images of loneliness and isolation. A green rowboat on a blue lake with no oars to row ashore. A lost puppy curled up beneath a dead mesquite tree. A black kite crashed into a power line. It didn't take a trained psychiatrist to see from her artwork that she was sorting through some stuff. Again, Helen's words arose in her mind. You know when you're in love, when you miss the other person so much it physically hurts. Even now, just looking at how pretty the table was set for the wedding reception, her body ached for Remington. And she worried about him, too, almost constantly. He shut himself up in his house on the west side of the ranch, the Lockhart who was the farthest away from the rest. She'd only seen him on Christmas Eve for a couple of hours, and then that disastrous little encounter in town. He looked as if he'd lost weight, and she fretted that he wasn't eating properly. So go tell him how you feel. What's the worst that could happen? He could tell her to get lost, that he didn't want to see her again, but she was already in so much emotional turmoil that showed up in her body as palpitations, tummy troubles, and tension headaches. How much more could his rejection hurt? His rejection? She was the one who had broken things off with him, yes. She'd been the one to cause her own pain. Was Remington hurting as much as she was? Was he hurting because of her? Misery stirred inside her, a murky cloud of despair. Why did she keep pushing him away? Fear. It was that simple. She'd always been the kind of person who avoided deep feelings and long-term commitments. Life was just easier when you kept things light. But something had happened in Twilight, something magical and whimsical, the something she often dreamed of, the something she longed for, but never really expected to find. She'd fallen for the myth, the legend, the fairy tale. Once she had the fantasy within her grasp, she tossed it away like a hot potato. Excuse me. She used the thing he treasured most against him, his backup plans, holding it up the insurmountable barrier between them. She told him that she would not be anyone's backup plan, but in reality he never treated her that way. He always put her first, bringing a coat when she dashed out of the car to help another mother and the kids, dancing with her on the deck of Joel McGregor's paddle wheel boat, taking her down to the fireplace at Mary Cherub's because he knew she liked spontaneity. He'd even done his best to stop cussing around her. Why hadn't she seen this all before? Afraid. She'd been afraid. While she loved whimsy, she never expected in turn real. And when the fairy tale had come to life in Twilight, she had danced in Remington's arms. She freaked the heck right out. That's it then. Vivi dusted her palms together. What? Arya said, had been so caught up in her misery of missing Remington, she hadn't even realized she'd been operating on automatic pilot, and they finished decorating the barn. We're done. We can kick back until tomorrow and noon. Go home. Grab a nap before you return to babysit my hooligans. That wasn't happening. She had restless insomnia since she'd returned from Twilight. Unless Vivi trailed off. Unless what? You want to tell me what really happened in Twilight? Arya would not tell her, had absolutely no intention of telling her. But then Vivi came over and laid a hand on her shoulder, and all the stuff she vowed would stay on the road did not indeed stay there. Then tears sprang to her eyes, and that was it. Arya held nothing back. Not what happened in Armadillo, not the screw-up she made, not by not having a backup plan when Garza's told their son was sick, not the way she'd sent Remington packing, not how he acted when she'd seen him at the diner. It all came out. She told Vivi everything and could not bring herself to tell her family. Vivi just listened, nodded appropriately, giving her a soft smile when Arya needed it. I miss him so much, and it hurts so bad, Arya sniffled, hiccuped. I suspected, Vivi nodded, her stylish blonde bob grazing her shoulders. How did you know? You haven't been the bright light you usually are. I'm sorry, don't apologize. I just want to see you happy. I don't think I'll ever be happy again, not as long as Remington is giving me the cold shoulder. Sounds to me like you're falling in love. But Vivi, I can't be in love with Remington. Why not? Well, for one thing, the stupid family legend and my sisters will be so smug about it. And you let that stop you from grabbing a hold of love just so you can avoid your family's relentless teasing? Well, no, not really. What is it, really? Remington is a good man. You know that. He represents everything I've spent my life running from. Commitment, heavy-duty responsibility. Love, Vivi finished for her. Miserably, Arya nodded. There it was, the irony of it all. She, the romantic, who loved planning weddings and all the hoopla surrounding romance and falling in love, was terrified of being in love herself. That's why she had sent Remington away. Not because he treated her like a backup plan, but because he cherished her like she was special, as if she meant something special to him. You're afraid of being trapped by love, Vivi said, as it was a statement, not a question. Slowly, Arya nodded. Maybe. You're afraid it will all tie you down and close off all your options. A hard lump in her throat, and she tasted the salt of her unshed tears. It's why, when things get serious, you flutter off. She hadn't gone to Teos and Jill and Paula. That was progress. A year ago, she would have been shooting down the ski slopes right now. But she didn't want to be on the Teos ski slope. She wanted to be here, wanted to be with Remington, but she was terrified to her core that he did not want to be with her. Oh, Vivi said, trying hard to sound casual. I almost forgot. Arya narrowed her eyes. Almost forgot what? Vivi walked to where she set her tote purse on the small table near the front door, and they used to display the guest book during their wedding reception. She rifled through it, produced a stack of mail. Could you take Remington his mail? He forgot to pick it up when he came by the house. Because the 4 Lockhart brothers' houses were so far from the main house on the Silver Feather, the postal carrier left everyone's mail at the mansion's central location. Vivi's eyes met Arya's. I know it's a bit out of your way, but his mail has really been stacking up, and some of it looks important. Her boss was giving her an excuse to go by Remington's house. She could latch onto it and take a chance, or she could say that dropping by his place was simply too far out of her way, which honestly it was. Vivi stood there, her outstretched hand filled with envelopes and catalogs. Arya stepped back, gripped by fear of seeing Remington again and having him turn her away. How could she blame him? From his point of view, she'd acted like an impulsive flake. One eyebrow shot up Vivi's forehead. You're going to make me load up the kids and drive these over there? It's 15 miles. You could send a ranch hand or a Duke or Archer. The ranch hands have New Year's Eve off. Duke and Archer are helping Ridge get ready for the party. His mail has been stacking up this long. It can't wait another day. So that's a no? Vivi looked disappointed in her and dropped her outstretched arm. I can't or won't. What's the big deal with the mail, Vivi? He's got a letter in there from the VA. A fresh fear washed over her. Was something wrong with Remington? Her throat was dry and swallowed hard. Why? I suspected it's a reply to his request that he made before he left for Twilight with you. What request is that? Fear was a concrete wall in her chest. Was he sick? He's laying the groundwork for becoming part of the Wounded Warrior Network when he gets his retreat up and running. Although since he found Augie, Duke told me Remington is thinking about training dogs to be the companions for military personnel suffering from PTSD as well. This is the information he sent away for. Oh, so this is good news. Relief spilled over her. Remington was okay. Let's hope. Vivi extended the envelope again. This time, Arya took them. Chapter 25. Verbal. The area of turbulence behind the object. Aria drove across the plains of the ranch, the bulk of the Davis Mountains to her left, rising straight up for the flat earth, gray clouds misting around the humped mounds, giving them the foggy appearance of slumbering elephants. They weren't real mountains in the parlance of the Rockies, but they were the closest Texans could claim to something taller than the foothills. The highest of them, Mount Livermore, clocked in at a little over 8,000 feet. No, her hometown mountain range was more whimsical than anything, pretending at something bigger and better than larger than life. She realized that she was a lot like those mountains. She glanced over at Remington's mail stacked on the passenger seat of her car. The closer she got to his house, the quicker her pulse skipped. His house was newly constructed this year. He had built it while he was in the hospital recovering from his wounds. Before that, his home had been a fifth-wheel trailer he stayed in when he came home from leave. She only had been out here once when he came home for good, and the families had thrown him a combo homecoming housewarming party. She never really had another reason to venture this far out on this silver feather. The one-lane dirt road forked. One branch headed north to his older brother's Ranger's Earthship home, where he and Ember and their kids stayed when they came back to visit from their home in Canada. The other road led back west to Remington's place. At the fork, she hesitated. The north entrance would take her past Ranger's house to the highway leading to Fort Davis. From there, she could loop back east to Cupid. She didn't have to do this. She could leave Remington's mail with Ranger and Ember. They wouldn't be flying back to Canada until the day after New Year's Eve. She stopped the car, pulled out her phone, texted Ember, "You home?" But the text didn't send. Blocked by the Davis Mountains, she had no service in this spot. "Just drop off the mail. It's only another mile. You don't even have to knock. Leave it on his doormat and go. Good plan." And then she saw it, a text that had come in while she'd been helping Vivi decorate. It was from Olivia, just back from her honeymoon. She scrolled through the long text, anything to delay this, reading about how awesome the honeymoon in Belize had been, how wonderful it was to be married to Ben, how much she appreciated all Aria had done for her. It was the gushy texting of a woman in love. But then, after the long text, there was a photograph of the sweetheart tree in the sweetheart park, a close-up of the one charm on the wire frame around the tree trunk, along with a short comment from Olivia. "Thought you should see this." Expecting to see Smalgy message from Ben to Olivia, Aria used her finger to enlarge the picture, and when she read it, and all air escaped from her body, leaving her rag doll slumped against the seat. It was the same copper heart-shaped charm that Aria had engraved for the tree, the charm that said Aria and Remington were here, except the inscription had been altered. Now the charm read, "Aria and Remington fell in love here." Her heart hammered, slamming blood against her eardrum, tribal and primal, boom, boom, boom. Who had altered this charm? Olivia, but why? Could it be Remington? But when and where and why? She desperately wished she could text Olivia and ask her if she'd been the one to etch over the initial engraving, but she had no cell service. She was on her own to sort this out. Had Remington truly fallen in love with her? Enough so that far that he'd gone to the trouble of having put up a charm for everyone in Twilight to see? She had so many questions. So go ask him. Driving up, she couldn't help admiring the home's sturdy neo-craftsman architecture, so much like Remington himself. She killed the engine in his flagstone driveway and closed her eyes. Imagine this place with guest cottages behind the main house for wounded war vets on their path to healing. Aria admired him for wanting to do this, loved that he cared enough about others to center his life around helping them. Wished she could be a part of it somehow. Maybe she could give art lessons. Art therapy was a growing field in the treatment of PTSD. Maybe she could even go back to school and become an art therapist. She had an art degree, and she stumbled onto the job Vivi's wedding planning just right out of college when she helped her plan Kia and Ridge's wedding. And while she loved what she did, she couldn't help thinking it would be nice to help people who were struggling and use her love of art to do it. After all, look what a difference it made for Remington when he'd drawn his hand in her art class. But where was this coming from? She'd never given art therapy a second thought before her time in Twilight with Remington, and now out of the blue she was thinking of a whole new career? Maybe. Why? Remington, and the fact that he might have put that charm at the sweetheart tree. We're about to lose the phone again, which I dislike saying that, but it's true. So I'm going to try and continue on, and we'll just, when it stops, it stops. She admired the man in so many ways. He'd been through so much, things that would have capsized a lesser person. She couldn't even imagine what it was to lose that part of your hand. She respected the way he bounced back from it so quickly. He'd done everything he needed to do to deal with his trauma. He tackled therapy, both physical and emotional, with steadfast determination. Even better, he wanted to take what he learned to help others. He already started the process. Glancing over the mail in her seat, the big white envelope from the VA on top, she felt a great deal of pride in his progress. In her eyes, he was one heck of a hero. She loved being with him because once she got him out of his comfort zone, he liked to laugh with her. He was observant and curious and kept her on her toes. He called her on her bullshit, and she didn't wiggle off the hook. Once she got past the gruff camouflage, he was warm and understanding and patient. He was active and could be playful, and he was the most loyal man she'd ever known. And she'd thrown it all away because she was afraid that she could never live up to the image of herself that she saw in his eyes. And before we go any further, we got to stop, upload. I'm going to try and be back really quick. On a side note, the dogs are doing well.